parents to opt out of things which go against the faith of that they're teaching their children. They say, you don't have the right to even opt out of the class anymore. We will instruct. You don't own the parent. You don't own the children. We are watching. I'm just touching. I cannot go into this. But let's go now to where we are as we are on the second tablet. And let's see the revelation here of the second tablet and what it would say, the principles to America. Verse 13. You shall not murder. No accident. In an age of putting away the commandments of God, one of those ways of God is thou shalt not murder. Now, it's not talking simply about people who murder and letting them get away with it. It's talking about in a society here now. Here, much bigger than that is a society that makes legal murder. Because then the entire society becomes murderous. Murder is based on the proposition that human life is sacred in the image of God. But remove the Ten Commandments, remove God's way, remove the foundation of America, and what happens soon after that? Within 10 years of driving God out of the schools, what happened? 1973, America legalizes the murder of the unborn. A baby, an unborn child is no longer an unborn child. It's now a fetus. It's a way of trying to explain away what really is there. Killing. The termination, they'll say, well, it's a termination of pregnancy. No, it's the termination of a life, of a human life. Israel was judged. Let me say something before that, because in a congregation of our size, of course, there are those in your life before you. There are undoubtedly people who had abortion. And God, you have come to God. God cleanses you by the blood of Messiah. But we are talking now about what is legal in the land. Israel was judged for killing thousands of its children, offering them on the altars of Molech and Baal. America has not killed thousands. America has killed millions. Over 50 million children are not here today, and their blood is on the hands of the nation. In such an era of what is talked about, tolerance. This is the real tolerance. Watch what happened, the tolerance of even human life. That's the price of this tolerance. And the issue even now, just the week before last, the president and the administration sought to require that even religious organizations, ministries, would have to pay for not only contraception, but they call it contraception, but it is called the abortion pill, which is literally abortion. It kills after conception. After an uproar, the administration backed down to a degree, but still has mandated that all insurances cover this form of abortion, meaning that when you pay to that insurance, your money also is included. There is something called the white canary. When coal miners would go down, they would have a white canary in a cage that if that canary got sick and died, they knew the air was bad. They knew they had to get out. So in the same way, the white canary of our civilization is the unborn, the ones who are the most helpless, that they are bearing the brunt of this culture. And it affects the youngest. It affects even the way we treat the old and the weak. Life is cheapened here. Reflects a society that has lost its reverence for life, the sanctity of life. And so if you lose the sanctity of life, that you're in the image of God and there's a purpose for your life, then what else is that going to affect? That will affect sexuality, of course. Because if there's no real sacred purpose for life, then there's no purpose for your being male or female. You understand? They're connected. In 1930s, the biggest horror story was Frankenstein. And when they came out, people literally fainted. Women screamed when they saw this. Now you look at this today, it's like, okay, that's interesting. But it doesn't have that effect because we've been so desensitized. Now they have slasher films. Now they have things in entertainment that were unthinkable before, blood and gore. This is what the Romans got into, blood and gore. Lyrics in popular music that once centered on innocence or falling in love now there are lyrics about rape and violence and mutilation. That's part of the culture of death, which leads to the next part. Next commandment. which bears a prophetic revelation. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not commit adultery. Guarding the sanctity of the home, the family. This is now the realm of sexual immorality. When God is driven out, sexual morality comes in. Immorality, why? Because sexual morality comes from God. And this is part of the purpose. This is part of your being. And so when you take God out, that's where that comes in. America long prided itself on the strength of its families. But in the 1960s, same time, that began to change. As it began removing God, it also began to suffer other things being removed. The breakdown of marriage began then. I mean, by and large, the great statistics began there. The breakdown, family, faithfulness, the divorce rate skyrocketed from minuscule number to about 1 of every 2 marriages. The numbers of people, of children being born out of wedlock, that was minuscule back then. Now it has reached over 40% of children in America grow up without marriage, are born without a father there, or without a marriage covenant. A new development came as we kept moving away from God, called no-fault divorce. Reflects another kind of serial adultery. You're just people going in and out of marriages. An adulterous people. Reflecting the weakening of the marital bonds. Opening the door as marriage weakens. Sexual immorality strengthens. They go hand in hand. Fornication, illegitimate births, living together. 1 in 5 children killed in the womb, all part of the same thing. A culture of unfaithfulness affecting families, children growing up. You know that now there's a growing gap between those who are in marriages, children growing up with marriages and without. And that when they study the effects of children, it is overwhelming that children in marriages with a father and mother are far better off. Now, God is the factor. If you grew up or you're in a case, God will equalize that in your life. But that's the truth. That's the fact. The Bible says it. It says in the end times, immorality will increase.